Greetings to everyone in Korea, South Korea. And I was mentioning to Ki Chan, my sponsor, that I had been to Seoul on 6 different occasions. I got interested and enthusiastic about the work you were doing in South Korea, beginning in my first visit, 2001. And I had come back in 2002, 07, 09, 12, and 17. So my last visit to Seoul was in 2017. So it is very good to be back in Seoul, 2021, and especially since the COVID crisis, maybe we are finally controlling it in not all countries. We have to worry very much about India and other countries that are still suffering. But the fact is that we're approaching a point where we may be post-COVID, in which case we have to recognize there will be changes. We will not get back to the old normal. We will find a new normal. Remember, many people are actually working at home and working for the company at home rather than in the office. So I will comment if there's questions later about the shape of the new normal, which is not the old normal. But right now, what I want to do is talk about all the exciting changes that have been occurring in not only marketing, but business as well. Let me start, however, with my inspiration, who is the famous father of management, Peter Drucker. I always go back to start with Peter because he was also not only the father of management, but I've named him, he didn't know about this, but I named him the grandfather of modern marketing. Let's see why. So Peter said to all of us in his wonderful books, the corporation is in trouble because it is seen increasingly by more and more people as deeply at odds with basic needs and basic values of society and community. In other words, a lot of companies think they are meeting our needs and serving our values, but they're not. They're just making money, doing what they think will make money. And often they're not, just take the example of the food that we eat. We don't eat healthy food. A lot of hot dogs and hamburgers and so on, it's not the best thing for us, but they make money selling it. To what extent should the corporation start really giving us what we should be having and needing? He made another statement. He said, the business enterprise has 2 and only 2 basic functions. Only 2? Only marketing and innovation? What happened to finance? What happened to production cost? What about human resources? Well, the fact is that those are costs, but to be successful, you must be successful in 2 things. Innovation is one. You must come out with products that people want and desire. And secondly, you have to know how to market them. So that's the basic idea. Another statement he made, the purpose of a company is to create customers. Now, you may have said to your own people as a CEO, the purpose of our company is to make profits. Well, that's true, although I might even define other purposes, but you're not going to make profits unless you can create customers who will buy your products. So he was right. Peter said the aim of marketing is to know and understand the customer so well that the product or service fits him and sells itself. Now, notice, normally we have to have salesmen. We make products that do not sell themselves. We have to advertise and have salespeople. But Peter said, ideally, when you're really a great marketer, you introduce a product that is needed and people stand in line to buy it. You don't have to have salesmen. All you have to do is have an order taker to take the orders. So the aim is very high when there's going to be great marketing going on. Great marketing is about what you decide to produce as much as how to sell it. Peter said the best way to predict the future is to create it. And every company is affecting the future for good or for bad. Your company has to predict it, help shape it to move in the right way for people. And he said, if the gods wanted to destroy you, they would give you 20 years of success. You know what he's saying, that a lot of companies do get successful. For example, General Electric was very successful under Jack Welch. But when Jack retired, the company fell. It really did. They had 20 years of success. And so success is no guarantee of continuity. The only guarantee of continuity is innovation. Well, let me move on. You have heard of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 marketing. Let me say that the reason for these short books, they're about 200 pages, is that no one can write a new textbook every year. A textbook is 800 pages. They're written every 4 or 5 years to cover all the changes. So it's important to develop for managers, marketing managers, an update, a way to say what basically is new that we should know about. For example, Marketing 4.0 was published in 2017. Marketing 5.0 was just published, and so on and so forth. Now notice that each is a different type of marketing. Marketing 1.0 is really functional marketing. It's the kind that Russia did when it started out. They would just make a product, they would describe it in very stark terms with no emotions, and they would price it, and they wouldn't do much advertising. It was just functional. They made the product available to people who wanted it. Okay, that's not very exciting. The sense of 2.0 is that it's emotional marketing, that you recognize that 70% of the consumer decisions are emotional. By the way, I go further. I say that 70% of producers' decisions have a lot of emotion. Because remember, let's say you were running the Boeing aircraft company, making Boeing airplanes. Do you think it's a pure rational exercise? You know how much risk is involved. And when risk is involved, the decision maker is basically some of the emotions he feels or she feels about, am I making the right decision? They come into play. And sometimes the reasoning given for the decision is really a rationalization of the emotional state that really made the decision. Now, 3.0, we call well-being marketing. When marketing reaches that stage, it really cares about delivering to customers something that is of value to them and value to their continued happiness and livelihood. Now, you may be puzzled about something. Is there a book called 1.0? No. Nor is there 2.0. Because when we started our thinking, we started it by writing the book 3.0, and then we looked back at what marketing was at one time, 1.0, then noticed that it got to 2.0. So there's really one book called 3.0. Now, what I want to talk to you about is marketing 4.0 and marketing 5.0 to capture the changes in our mind. Now, let's go to 4.0. 4.0, I can summarize the highlights in case you haven't read that book and want to take a look at it. We distinguish the following. We distinguish between the digital world that was coming into existence and doing digital marketing, because companies differed at the rate at which they digitalized. In fact, there were deniers too. People running companies who said, I don't need it. I'm making money without going digital. Now, they've been lately moving to digital because it wasn't going to work unless they moved digitally. So what we wanted to establish in 4.0 is that marketing was undergoing a revolution from the old advertising idea of a 30-second commercial, very expensive to make, and some print advertising in magazines and newspapers. Now, that's traditional communication media. Don't give it up. The digital media, which is Facebook, Instagram, Google, and many other ones, they are coming in to play and have a good function to perform, but they have to be blended with traditional. I am not for giving up traditional, but I think we've been overspending on traditional and must spend more on the digital. And we're recognizing that omni-marketing means making sure you have enough channels for people to find it easy to buy your product. And we want to distinguish particularly between offline and online marketing. Now, all marketing was offline originally, but with the digital, we went online. I'll tell you how much that has operated. My wife does not do offline shopping. She doesn't go to stores. She looks at catalogs, and when she sees something she wants, she orders it online, and it comes in a day or two, and she'll open the package. If she doesn't like it, she'll return it. She doesn't go to stores. So we now know that online marketing may account in the United States for maybe 15% of all purchasing. Well, with COVID and people not willing to go into stores, that number may have grown to maybe 25% online purchasing. It's bound to grow more. Now, another thing that we talked about in 4. Well, I want to go back a little bit because I really should emphasize 4.0 before 5.0. Because read both books. Well, we said in 4.0, there are shifts going on. One shift is from exclusive to inclusive. In other words, your business will be run better if you the consumers you want to sell to are inclusive. You're not making your products just for a small number of people, and actually decision making. When you do decision making, it's done with a wide enough group to make a sound decision. And so on. And many companies are moving from vertical thinking to horizontal thinking. They're thinking that basically they want to flatten the organization. For example, many companies have fewer layers of management. They don't want that vertical all the way from the top to the bottom. There are even companies, and there's one in China called Hire, which has no management. It's so flat, it is without managers. I won't say any more now, but from individual thinking only to social, what's good for society. And in 4.0, we even talked about 3 groups: the youth, very important for companies to understand young people, and women, and what's happening with women's rights and women's jobs, and netizens, which are often youth, those who are so good at computers and digital. But we introduced also a very interesting funnel that the customer really, the job of the company is to get the customer first aware of your product or your offer. Secondly, to be sure it's appealing to the customer. Third, the customer is going to likely want to know more and ask questions, and you should anticipate the questions. Then if the customer is satisfied, he or she will act and buy the product. And if they're really satisfied, they will act again and buy the product. So in that book, 4.0, we mentioned 2 new metrics to measure. One is PAR. What percentage was involved in moving from brand awareness to brand purchase? I mean, how long did it take to get the awareness to become a purchase? And the other is BAR, from brand awareness to brand advocacy. In other words, creating, how long did it take to make someone so loyal and that they talked and helped you, helped others know about your company? Now I'm going to move on to 5.0, which I was really into, but let me emphasize the following. One of the main concepts we've introduced was the customer journeys and to manage the steps in the journey. In other words, imagine a auto dealership selling, let's say, a Hyundai, selling the Hyundai. Every time a customer comes in, it would be nice to know how he got to that dealership. How did he get to even want a car? And in wanting a car, which 3 brands did he just think about? And why did he think that it's maybe important to see the brand in your store? And how did he choose your dealership? And if you would ask that question of many of your customers, you could map out the factors that affect the journey to your dealership, and particularly the touch points. Now, touch points are very important. One of the major touch points is this customer walks in and meets one of your salespeople. What if the customer is turned off by the salesperson, finds that salesperson too pushy, too overbearing? The customer turns around and leaves. So you must not only know the touch points, but you must manage them perfectly. The 5.0 also wants you to understand the 3 gaps. One is called the generation gap, and this is the gap between young people and senior citizens. That is, there's such a difference in what young people want when they choose a company. Here's what I've noticed. There's a preference for joining a company that has a larger purpose than just profits. If the company's only interested in profits, yes, I can work and they'll make me work so that the shareholders can make more money. But frankly, I'd rather work for a company that has a social conscience, that recognizes that there are social problems and that it wants to make the world, we say better marketing can lead to a better world. So when you hire people, you got to decide that those people who are younger, they have a different mentality. One aspect is they care about the world and whether it's really working well for people. They also want a better family life. They want a nice balance between work and family. And if your company is set up to offer those benefits and so on, you'll have a easier time attracting very qualified and ambitious people. The digital divide is the fact that there's a difference between what the senior officers know about the digital world and what the young people know. Do you know there are cases of companies where the CEO sits down twice or three times a week for 1 hour with a kid who they hired? The kid was hired to help the company do certain work, but the kid also should teach the CEO to understand how to navigate the digital world. And this problem of prosperity polarization is a deeper problem. Namely, there are the rich and the poor. Not only that, the middle class, which is really the aim of everyone. Everyone wants to be sort of middle class, not poor, and they don't need to be super rich. The question is, there's too many in most countries of poor people, and there are too few, and there are a few who get billions and billions. In fact, there are something like 3,000 billionaires in the world now. And it's interesting, my own thought about having $1 billion would be, that's enough. I can do everything I want to do with $1 billion. But you got some people like Jeff Bezos, who runs Amazon. He has $170 billion. That's not 1 billion, that's 170. So there's going to be a problem about this, because we're finding that the middle class is shrinking, and actually professional people themselves do not make enough to pay for their health costs and to go send their kids to college and to meet all of the expenses that are growing to live a good life. So we talk about that problem, and we also distinguish some types of marketing. Data-driven marketing is paying attention to data and collecting data on the level of the individual customer, not just the segment or the whole market, but knowing each customer who you care about. Predictive marketing is having some tools for figuring out whether a new product that we developed has a good chance to be alive and well. Contextual marketing means we have to change around our marketing to even seasonally, at different times of the day even, because we're always in a context where there's always a here and now, which is different from tomorrow's here and now, and so on. Marketing in the evening is different than marketing in the morning for some businesses. Augmented marketing, I'll get to that later. That has to do with virtual reality and simulations. And agile marketing means to be fast and quick and ready to change and ready to respond. So that's 5.0. Now, actually, every generation poses a different orientation. Just going back, all of the businesses that were started in South Korea a long time ago, they were just product oriented. I sell cars. I make steel. I am a grocery store. I'm a barber who does haircuts. All right, that's a product orientation. Customer orientation came about a little later, that when we learned that it's important to know your customers and give them what they need. And we even have good measures of, I can go into a South Korean company and find out, probably by asking some questions, and a day later tell you how customer oriented that South Korean company is. and we have all kinds of metrics for that. Now, what took over a lot of marketing thinking eventually was brands. Are we a brand? Is it a strong brand? Is it strong enough that we can even introduce other products with the same brand name? Like, for example, one strong brand name is Dove, D-O-V-E. Dove is a nice little bird, a peaceful bird. And Unilever has the brand Dove, and they make products for women with Dove soap, Dove this, Dove that. So we got very interested in the art and science of branding. I came out with a recent book called Brand Activism, Brand Activism, where the brand really has to be alive and forceful in its impact on people's thinking. Now, of course, we're into a digital world. And that started maybe, 2010, 2015. It's still continuing. But the other thing that is coming stronger is societal values and the common good. Well, let me move on. Just as a summary, if someone says, what's marketing mean? The old idea would have been, marketing is about selling your product and using a sales force and some advertising and pricing and promotion to sell it. All right. I have a different view. Marketing's task is to create, communicate, and deliver superior value. Let's call it CCDV, to a target market, TM, at a profit if you're a for-profit firm. But if you are a non-for-profit, if you're a museum, it isn't for-profit. So that's why I left that off. Now, I have even a stronger view. Marketing is the business discipline driving responsible company growth. Someone in a company has to be responsible for growing the company, not just selling to those who buy your present product, but making the kinds of products that will have growth in them. So marketing should be a discipline that helps the company grow and grow responsibly. Okay. Now, what else is happening since we wrote 4.0? Well, 5.0 is about Martech. Now, Martech, do you know what fintech is? Have you heard the term fintech? Financial technology, new payment systems. There are some companies putting out new coins, new currencies. There's a lot of fintech, but we'll call the new technical things marketing tech or Martech. What are they? All right, 5D printing. Well, first you're puzzled. 3D printing. What's 5D? Well, they found out that some of the objects made with this printer, where it goes around and it makes a product that is what you designed right on your computer screen. It's often put into a piece of equipment and it breaks down, it cracks. And so 5D printing is used, it's more sophisticated when the product you're going to print has to be really strong. It's because it's subject to a lot of pressure and it shouldn't break. All right, the biggest thing is AI and algorithms. We're beginning to realize that if there's going to be robots taking over the world, they will be run by AI. I hope they don't take over the world. I hope they help us make better decisions so that we have partners. The robots are partners. They're not independent of us. In any case, algorithms is the very most important word here. Namely, we use AI to invent rules which will make decisions for us, and better decisions generally than we could make on our own. let me give you an example. Let's say you run a bank and you have people coming to borrow money. Should you make the loan? Well, you're going to leave it to your lending officer. The lending officer will look at the person, will ask a lot of questions, and then think out, yes, we can make you the loan, or no, we cannot. Now, you can also turn that decision over to an algorithm, which has in it a lot of variables. You could collect from the very person who's asking for the loan the information you need. You put that information into the algorithm, and it predicts either a yes or a no, or if it's sophisticated, it will be a probability. It might be like, if you lend that $10,000 to that person, the probability is 85% that he will pay back the loan. So you can get a probability from the algorithm. Now, there's been a lot of criticisms of algorithms. One has to do with that there may be some prejudices or biases. Let's say you wrote it up for basically what white people will be comfortable with their answers and so on, but it leaves off. It's partial to white people and not people from Asia or from Africa or something like that. So some algorithms can be criticized for using a set of factors that are not a totally best set to use. Okay, let's move on. So tech is also about all the new media, about Facebook and Instagram and others, Google. Now, what else is coming up is certainly voice recognition. I love voice recognition. I will just take my cell phone and I'll say, "Hey Siri, what time is it? What's the weather like?" And she's only hearing sound, but the sound now is turned into digital, and her answers are ready. Now, facial recognition is in a new stage of growth. The idea being not only to know what the customer looks like, but do you know there are some people working on trying to interpret the emotions of the person from the face and other things. Now, all of this depends on collecting a lot of data, and we put the data into our big box and then do machine learning, looking for regularities in the data, looking for relationships in the data, trying to hopefully get insight into our customers' behavior. Okay, more Martech. Well, there's actually robots. You know that the Japanese are very much focused on that industry, the creation of robotics, both for big industrial manufacturing, but also one of the things is a little dog that senior citizens who are retired might buy and hold, and the dog barks and the dog smiles and so on and so forth. Things like that are happening. The chatbots would be systems for answering your questions. You're in a store and you see an appliance. It's an attractive appliance that claims that it can do your floor cleaning better. And you have some questions. So you put the question to the chatbot and say, how much do you cost? This machine costs. How long will it last before I'd have to replace it? So the company making the machine has to anticipate a lot of questions, and the chatbot is formulated to be able to answer a lot of questions that might come about a product. Virtual reality involves a film in a sense, but it's not just a film. But they'll give you a pair of glasses to put over your eyes, and you will see many things. You may be visiting Yellowstone National Park without going there. You will actually think, wow, those glasses are on, and you are walking through the park and seeing beautiful things. Now, augmented reality is formulated actually often for a new product. You're about to invest in a new kind of automobile. It's going to be an electric automobile, something like the Tesla, but different. And you want to show it to people, but you haven't even made it. You've imagined it, and you ask some of the types of people who are likely to have the money to buy such a product to look at that product through glasses, and they can actually sit down in the car that hasn't been made yet, but it will be made that way, and hear the engine start and get an impression of whether they think that car ought to be made. So augmented reality becomes a very good tool for testing new products. Blockchains and digital money are coming about, and that goes more into fintech than martech, but you got to understand what those are. We talk about our world being one of sensors and the Internet of Things. We know this when we are walking toward our car and the car door snaps open. It doesn't come open, but we know that I now can open the door. Sensors are put into products. A good type of sensor is one that will reveal to you that the product is wearing out and the tire is likely to be needing replacement. Sensors are being put everywhere. Marketing automation is an interesting idea. Can you go to sleep comfortably at night and be sure that any developments in the market at night, like your competitor is changing his prices or something like that, that your system is set up as if it's always alert to any changes and it has a response to every change? That might be important. Marketing automation, in another sense, is just to take those routine marketing tasks and automate them so you don't have to spend time doing routine kinds of work. And we have to ask whether any machines would help our business. Should we have a drone? Well, wait, isn't that what Amazon said? That basically they hope eventually to deliver some products by drones. The drone would ride over near your home and come down slowly and put on your staircase a product, and your phone will automatically ring and say, open your door because we just dropped your product off. You got to always ask, of all of these Martech things, what would be useful in our business? What about online and distance learning? And what about neuroscience and gene editing? What about these? Maybe you're a clothing manufacturer and you should pay attention to wearables. I'd like to wear a jacket that warms me when it's cold outside and it cools me when it's too hot. Or a wearable jacket that tells me about my blood pressure and other medical kinds of things. Okay, I know that there's so much to talk about, but I mention these things because more and more books are coming out giving you the specifics of each of these types of Martech and where they're being used even by companies. I want to bring together a collection of things that are newer ideas in marketing. That's why we write a 5.0 or whatever from time to time. And I've already mentioned algorithms and AI and marketing automation. And I've mentioned customer journeys and mapping them and touch points, knowing that you've got to be good at every touch point. But personas marketing, that's getting more sophisticated. It helps in designing a message to visualize the person who will receive the message. So the copywriter who's going to formulate a message to go out to, let's say, customers of McDonald's, are we talking about a mother with children who might take her children to McDonald's? What do you say in that case? Or are we talking about a senior citizen who's retired? What would your message be in that case? So we invent personas to represent the basic types of people who might be in our target market, and it helps to do that. Content marketing, you know, we're all into content marketing now. Now every consumer can be a producer. Every consumer could be a publishing house. Content is being generated by producers and consumers. Now, if you're a company, try to create content that will be of interest to your customers, and don't always make it sales pitch content. Yes, you're busy with messages that say buy now, but how about content that people are interested in? That, let's say you have a lot of customers who like sports. Maybe some of your information should be couched in sports terms. Maybe you might send a salesman may send to a customer an interesting story about a famous soccer player, and it's not to sell them anything. It's just to say, I think of you, and you're a friend. We've known each other for a long time. I thought you'd like that article. That's content. Now, influencers marketing is, we have found out that a lot of people have big networks. Take Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga may be followed by a couple of million people. If she picks up a bottle of Pepsi-Cola and drinks it during her appearance, a lot of people may switch to Pepsi-Cola because they adore Lady Gaga, and that's what she drinks. So you can see the power that high network people have over others on the internet. And in fact, you know what? Companies are now searching for high network influencers and actually offering them money to show up with their product in a casual way, or as an advocate of the product. So a lot of some money is being paid by some companies to influencers who they want to show the use of their product. Omnichannel marketing, as I said, is both offline and online, and many kind of channels. I keep thinking of how going to a gas station now is like going to a food store. It used to be just the gas station, gas and oil. Now it's a whole place you sit down and order your food, or at least you can get milk and coffee and a bunch of other things at the gas station. Lean marketing is a quick way to try out a new product idea without spending a lot of time. Nothing should take 3 years to make as a new product. So I'll say more about lean marketing. And then cause marketing is about how do you get people to stop smoking? How do you use marketing to get people to stop bullying other people? Here's two problems that we're working on now. How do you get a person to wear a mask so he or she doesn't give COVID to someone else? There's a lot of people who won't put on a mask. And the other one is there are a lot of people who aren't willing to take a vaccination. I call that social marketing or social cause marketing. Well, let's move on. There's questions we can always ask a company about digital marketing to be sure that they're not, if you look at the bottom there, it says denier. I hope you're not a denier of digital marketing. I hope you're not just avoiding it or camouflaging and saying, oh, I am doing it, but it's not real. It's not enough. Hopefully you are a transformer. You have transformed your business into a digital business. I want to skip going into the specific questions now because I know we're a little behind. I want you to also be sure that you increase your digital activities to the extent possible, but let me move on. There was, as I said, in Marketing 4.0, we talked about 5 actions. And the interesting thing is, if I do it this way, and I say, what's your success in moving a person from being aware to finding the product appealing? In other words, what are the tools you would use to cause the aware person to also be find the product appealing? Well, your branding, your marketing, your communications. So below that in black are some of the tools that we would use. How do you get a person who finds your product appealing to ask some questions? And what are those questions? And so on. The last one shows for the person who has bought once, how do you get that person to become an advocate? What are the tools? So I've listed in black some of the tools that bring about movement from one state to a higher state, closer to purchase and so on. Now, very important to work with the 2 groups. Normally new products are thought of and teams are built to launch a new product, and marketing may be not involved. It should be involved. The product development people are usually maybe engineers, and they say, why do we need a marketer around? We know how to make the new product. Well, I want to make this point that the engineers may be masters of the possible. They can imagine a product that never existed, but they are not often good as masters of the valuable, knowing that what they created as something new is really exciting and attractive to people. So I always want to see a team making a new product involving development people and marketing people. And the question for your company is do you have good teamwork involving marketing people in the development of new products? And there's all kinds of things, from incremental new products to some ventures, new prototypes, to often a big thing that you're trying to do. It would be like Samsung trying to make a television set that is 3-dimensional, that you actually get into feeling you're involved in that very picture you're watching. So there's different types of new products to make and so on. In Japan, they have a term called Kaizen, that every worker and employee should think of making everything better each time, every day. How can I make what I'm doing, do it better? How can I do it better? And Kaizen has been very important in Japan to keep them alert and so on. And one of the nice things about going back to Samsung, however, and LG too, these are companies that want to, as soon as a new product comes out and it's successful, they're already asking how to replace it. When in my work as a consultant with Samsung, I was so impressed that they just finished making something new, and let's say with their the smartphone, and yet they're already thinking of a better cell phone than that, and that is the way to be a winner. There's no question in my mind. In fact, Samsung I was on a team of 4 or 5 people, and they wanted to know what are the most successful companies in the world? What are the top 5 companies that everyone would agree are the most successful in the world? And what do they share in common? Because Samsung wanted to know what makes a great company, because they want to be they are, and they want to continue to be a great company. All right, let me say that the main thing is to be an innovator. You've got to have some people in these roles. You have to have someone who's an activator. I hope a lot of people who come up with ideas, they see things and they come into the company and say, I saw something that would be a good thing for us to do. Now, for every idea from an activator, you should have someone who is good at browsing. Maybe that idea exists already. If so, it's not a new idea. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is a new idea, but someone has to have the capacity, like a librarian, to browse whether it already exists somewhere. And if it's a very striking idea, then turn it over to a creator type to fine-tune the idea. And then after you do a lot of testing of the idea using many tools, if it's still a great idea, turn it over to the developers and build the factory to make the product. And once the product is ready to be sold, you've got the executors, who are the salespeople, and the marketing people who are getting the product out to the market. And behind all of that is a lot of money, and the financiers have to be pretty ready to assist. So those are roles that I've described in my book called Winning at Innovation. I mentioned this quick way of making a new product. It's technically it's called iterative rapid prototyping. Basically, identify a minimum viable product that you're thinking of making, and then identify a minimum viable approach for selling it. A simple way to sell it, nothing fancy. And then choose a distribution channel and so on, and then try to sell it to that small group. You will learn that it ought to be improved. So now make a new iteration. Quickly, make a new iteration. It's still pretty minimum, both as a product and in the way you're selling it, but you're going to learn some more. And if you do this quickly, this iterative process quickly, you'll end up coming out pretty soon with that new product, if in fact it's justified. I want to say something about CMOs who run the company, who run the marketing. My experience in the United States is that CMOs last usually from 2 to 4 years. I don't want to discourage anyone listening to me, because you take Beth Comstock, a woman I know who was the CMO at General Electric for 8 or 10 years. So there will be some exceptional CMOs. Sometimes what happens is the CEO sees that sales aren't moving high enough for his taste, and he says, maybe we need a new head of marketing. Maybe what happens is a lot of CMOs who are really good are picked up very fast by competitors. That they have a great CMO. Let's tempt them to come to our company, and of course that means the tenures have been shortened that way. But please interview the candidate CMO. Make sure that they know data analytics, customization, personalization, and how to optimize, and how to drive digital campaigns. In other words, list what you think you want as the skill set in the CMO. And remember to tell the CMO you not only want growth ideas, but you want to see the performance of the budget that you give him or her. That's called the MROI, the marketing return on investment. Mr. CMO, how are you going to show me how much you actually caused with the budget? And by the way, the new CMO must spend half the time managing the department of marketing and half the time not doing that, because unless the CMO gets the respect of the CEO, the finance guy, the information technology person, development people, and so on, he or she won't be effective. So they have to also be close to the other members of the executive suite. There's even a question of what do you want to call that person. I call the person a CMO. Some people are calling them chief revenue officers, as if they are the person responsible for all the revenue, not just the marketing work to get revenue, but all the revenue. Or some people, here are 3 companies that call that person no longer CMO, they call it a chief growth officer. Johnson & Johnson and Hyatt and Uber have chief growth officers. Some companies have chief customer officers. Some people are still at the stage of calling the head of marketing the vice president of marketing. And something I often use, I ask the new CMO who we just hired, where do you want your office to be? You want it to be next to the CEO's office so you can see him daily, or the CEO or the chief financial officer's office, or the chief technology office, or the chief information officer, or the vice, or do you want to be next to the vice president of sales? They're good. It leads to very interesting discussions. A few more things. One is that what's going to happen to what's happening to selling itself. First of all, do the salespeople and the marketing people get along? I wrote a very strong article in the Harvard Business Review with the title, Ending the War Between Sales and Marketing. I don't want to get into all the frictions that might occur where the salespeople are not happy with the quotas they received or the prices that were set on the products that they have to sell. So they might even say to marketing, and we don't even like the ads you've put out, they don't help us, and so on and so forth. But it's very important that the sales group is motivated and works with marketing in a friendly way. And the question is, how many salespeople are we going to need in the future? See, with the digital revolution, so much is known now about what a company's products are and their prices and so on. You don't need a salesman. Let's say you're trying to decide between 3 brands. You can find so much about the 3 brands that you just call up and order the one you want without needing a salesperson to help you. I find that in many pharmaceutical marketing, normally a good pharmaceutical company has a good sales force. But often now the salesperson comes to the doctor's office and wants to have, 15 minutes or 10 minutes with the doctor. But the receptionist says, no, the doctor's too busy. Just leave your new drug and the literature and we'll give it to the doctor. We don't need you to stay. Good question about what is the proper size sales force given the digital revolution in different types of businesses. And the same thing is happening with, what about stores? Do we need stores? I've written on that too. And COVID caused the close down of so many stores, restaurants, hotels, bars, and even those selling, dresses and clothing and all that. So will stores come back after COVID? Yes, some will. but will it be an interesting shopping experience? Will people still wear masks? How do you make shopping more exciting when people could actually order from a catalog or just from the computer? Good question about that. Now, I want to also say that the purpose of a company is, of course, to make profits, but more companies now add another purpose, and it's not listed here, but it's what we call the problem of clean energy, the problem of a world that is not going to be flooded and have fires and terrible things happening because the earth is heating up. That's what I mean. The world, we know that the ice caps are melting. It has to do a lot with using the fuels we use, gas. We really need that electric car as soon as possible. And we've got to have less waste and be very careful. We have to decarbonize a lot of things. So the first book I had written called Corporate Social Responsibility was based on 45 companies, good ones, asking, did they show any caring for any of the social issues? And you have to read the book to see that, yes, these are good companies precisely because they also seem to show care about problems. And then this latest book, Brand Activism, From Purpose to Action, is carrying on the same theme. Because here's what's happening in business. The World Economic Forum, headed by Klaus Schwab, is doing a great reset. He is arguing, as the head of the World Economic Forum, that we have to move from shareholder thinking to stakeholder thinking. And in fact, his words are stakeholder capitalism becomes now really mainstream. This is stakeholder capitalism and sustainability. That's what I meant. In other words, a company must have profits, but it should also practice sustainability for the sake of the future generations too. And stakeholder capitalism makes it a little more complicated because instead of just making profit for shareholders, and there it's easy to measure, here stakeholder capitalism means you're trying to be fair to all the team members who made your company successful. They should all receive appropriate level rewards. Your employees particularly. How are you going to have motivated employees unless they feel that their work is appreciated? And what about suppliers and distributors and so on? So that's called caring about the stakeholders. A wonderful book that you might read, Firms of Endearment, because the authors asked this question, is there any company you really love? And a lot of people said, Apple, I love the Apple company. Others said Coca-Cola and so on. It's like, these are companies you can't live without. So they took 25 such companies in the United States that people said they loved. And they found out that all of them operated as stakeholder-driven companies, not shareholder-driven companies. They were highly profitable and they outperformed their competitors because they were stakeholder-driven. And their companies the people in the companies were happy, motivated, loyal, innovative, profitable suppliers, and environmentally concerned companies. So you might read the book Firms of Endearment because the principles should be followed, really, that they come up with. In fact, one of the most exciting things is these are companies that spend less on marketing. Less on marketing. Yes, because who does the marketing? The marketing is done by these happy customers and employees. You don't need a lot of marketing when everyone talks happily about that company. And there's another movement called conscious capitalism. And one of the authors runs a beautiful grocery store called Whole Foods in the United States, which has now been bought by Amazon. But the thing is, it's a set of principles that a smart company would have a higher purpose than just profits. The stakeholder orientation would exist. The leader would be very conscious of serving all the stakeholders, and the whole culture would be conscious. I'm going to skip this wonderful slide about Paul Pullman. We don't have the time, but he was the head of Unilever for 10 years. You could go and look up his name and hear a 1-hour talk he gave, a spontaneous talk with no notes, about how businesses ought to be managed. He, the CEO of Unilever, one of the most successful companies, had wonderful principles, and I'll leave it to you to read the slide. I also work very much with the CEO of YKK. If you have wear anything that has a zipper, this is the company that makes the world's best zippers. It's also a company that is now highly successful in doors and windows too. But anyways, we can't go over the diagram. But I want to say that if you look at the yellow part, it has to do with employees. He believes that in a cycle of goodness, that the money being made by his company should be going to the employees as good salaries, more than enough to live on, and that the employees should have a savings plan and should also have stock plan so that they also own some of the company too. I mean, it's a new concept of the employee as almost part owner too, that the money isn't coming only from a wage. It comes from careful savings and stock ownership too. I won't go through the rest of the diagram. So let's say that, what is your company like? Here are some of the traits of some of the top companies. The top company will win business from its partners, its affiliates, through webinars, through influencers. Marketing will be empowered to be the company's growth engine, not just sales engine, but growth engine. Mobile marketing will be very key. Everyone has a cell phone now, and using that cell phone for information, for voice, for so many things. And you should put on do chatbots and voice things on the cell phones. Gather data on the customers' journeys and touch points. Try to build not just a brand, but a brand community. You always think of Harley Davidson, the motorcycle company, where everyone joins together. They ride their motorcycles together. They wear the same jackets together. They're a whole community of consumers who love Harley. Advertise with social media platforms. And with Google and Facebook and just a little point there, do what P&G did. P&G took some of its money from traditional advertising and put it into learning how to use Facebook, Google, Instagram, and all these others, and found out that it overspent. It actually learned what does work with each of these. So now it's reducing the budget for social media because it now knows what works. So somehow you have to overspend and try out these things before you will know what really works. Now, develop and deliver fresh content and fresh new products, of course. Use more of marketing automation to get some of the routine work done, and build a reputation as an authentic, caring company, a company with a set of values that people can connect with, that you're a caring company, not just caring about profits. A book I just released makes a new point that marketing is H2H. It is human to human marketing. And in that book, we spell out, we review a lot of marketing thoughts and concepts and strategies, and review the human to human dimensions that must take place for success to occur. So I always like to leave with this thought. Within 5 years, if you're going to be in the same business you're in now, you're going to be out of business, because your success is the source of your possible failure, because you didn't move to the next success factors that were needed by your business. Well, thank you for listening to me. I have a great respect for so many of your companies, Hyundai and Kia and Samsung and LG and others, many others. South Korea has taught us a great deal about successful marketing. So if I get back to visit Seoul, I will find it delightful to see old friends. And let me just wish that you get into the post-COVID period and quickly define the new normal, which is not the old normal. Many things have changed. And then thinking ahead and thinking about making sure that you're not only serving the present generation, but future generations. You're practicing sustainability as well as profit making. Then you're obviously a very qualified and exceptional company. Thank you very much.